Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome. I see there's still a flood of people busy joining us. I'm just going to stop my screen share here quickly this side. And still, yeah, many, many, many people busy hopping online, and it's so good to see everybody joining. So many familiar names, and it's really, really great. And this chat tonight alone, I think, is indicative of how incredible this whole Big Year of African Sounds initiative really is in bringing everybody together from across the continent. And what a roller coaster first 4 months it has been. And it's just been phenomenal seeing everybody's updates on the group, posts on social media, and of course the leaderboard as Africa seemingly dominating on sound recordings this year. It's our time to shine, and it's just been absolutely fantastic seeing all of you just rise to the occasion. It's been truly, truly epic. So welcome everybody to what I hope is going to be the first of many of these webinars throughout the course of this year, and it looks like it's going to be very, very popular. We had approximately 80 people sign up for this evening. I suspect many will continue to dial in. There's already 38 online as it stands. And continue to please let us know where you're dialing in from all across the continent and the world in some instances. And tonight's installment, we're very fortunate to have Cullen Hanks and David Moyer, who are going to be taking the reins and guiding us through a topic I think so many of us are really invested in and interested in. And of course, it's an integral part of sound recording and the whole sound recording process. But before we get into that, I just want to take a brief moment to thank each and every single one of you for your efforts to promote sound recording and bioacoustic monitoring and to promote birding across the whole continent. If anything, the Big Year of African Sounds is more than about sound recording and devices that we're holding in our hands. It's about the ability for us as lovers of birds, of birding and conservation to unite in one song and one voice. And that is the song of conservation and the song of birds. And it's been absolutely fantastic. It's a celebration. And thank you to each and every single one of you. So please, let's continue these efforts. Let's continue the energy. We're going into the winter months here, certainly in the southern tip of the continent. But I know some of you are a lot more fortunate to have a hive of activity throughout most of the year and not impacted too much by winter. But let's keep encouraging one another. Let's keep up the network. Let's keep up the energy, and let's keep motivating one another and continue to learn from one another as well. So the structure of tonight, David and Cullen are going to take us through the reins. Most of you won't have the ability to unmute yourselves or to talk. However, if you are wanting to ask a question, please, there's a Q&A box or chat box, and there's the comments thread. Please ask questions. Ask questions. I'm confident that between Cullen, David, and myself, we'll keep our eyes trained on these two sections of the webinar, and we'll make sure that we ask or at least answer these questions. Certainly, Cullen and David, I'll just make sure that I send them to the two of them because I, as with you, are going to be learning a lot this evening. And in certain instances, if you really find that unmuting yourself is going to be the best bet and you would like to, then please just post the message in the chat and say, John, would you mind just unmuting it so that I can ask the question? And then I'll unmute you. I'll give you the ability to talk and ask your question, and then you can then ask the question, and you'll be unmuted, and you can ask it directly to the floor. But yeah, I think without further ado, let's get stuck into it. We've got a lot to tackle this evening, and I think we're all chomping at the bit. We're really excited. Cullen and David, over to you. Thank you very much, and we look forward to what's going to be an exciting evening.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. So my name's Cullen Hanks. I work in the Macaulay Library, and we're super excited to participate in the Big Year of African Sounds. As a scientific archive, our goal is to archive sounds that can support research and conservation efforts. And now is such an exciting time for that with new developments, especially in acoustic monitoring and tools for the birding community like Merlin Audio AD. And one of our big goals is to really increase representation of African species so that we can support these new kind of tools that are being developed in Africa. And to do that, one of our goals is to get at least 150 recordings of every species in Africa. Um, it's been super exciting to see the participation in the big year of African Sound. A big shout out to Zambia. Like, wow, people have uploaded already 4,500 recordings or more than that in Zambia. In terms of total number of species in South Africa, recordists have recorded 434 species. But I have to admit, John, Kenya's hot on your heels. They've uploaded sounds for 428 species, and so we'll see how that plays out. Getting some competition there. Um, so anyway, yeah. Before I jump into it, David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Cullen. I'm David Moyer, based in Iringa, Tanzania. I'm heading up the Cornell Lab of Ornithology annotation, sound annotation program to try to get these sounds ready and queued up and trained for the next release of the Merlin model. Thanks.
And so those annotations are basically kind of helping go through and curate the data set, training data set to help train Merlin Audio ID to identify more species. All right, so my goal today is really to kind of talk about, go through what you do after you go out and record birds. And if you are recording with a sound recording kit or even with your cell phone, if you get back and have a bunch of sound recordings, kind of what do you do? What are some, how do you kind of go through and evaluate those sound recordings to share them? For me, my purpose is really contributing to a scientific archive, and so for my goal is really about trying to understand what I have and how to kind of go through, do some basic editing, and share that with information to maximize the value for people that want to use it, whether it's a birder or somebody doing research who's using the archive. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of go through those steps of looking at your files, evaluating what's in them, and then doing basic editing and upload. Um, and so to start with, I think I'm not going to go straight into editing. I kind of want to talk a little bit about managing your files. And by the way, what John said is please, if anybody wants to ask a question, please do. If anybody would like to ask it, you can request access to speak. But this is really meant to be more of an interactive discussion and welcome questions. The first thing I want to mention is just a little bit of best practices and thinking about how you organize your sound files. Now, there's different ways of doing it, but I think one of the key things is that you want to organize your sound files when you come down and download them so that you can always go back and access them. One of the nice things is that if you upload your sounds to the Macaulay Library, you have an online backup and you can always access them, but you may want to go back to that original file. And so it's really important that you have an organized approach. They're not like photos that you can scroll through and see what's in each photo. And so I'm just going to share and show you how I organize my sounds folder. This is my sounds folder, and what I do is I have a folder for each month and the place where I was recording. And so, for example, it's nicely kind of organized in chronological order. And you can see in 2026 of January, I was in Tanzania and Kenya. But for shorthand, I just put Tanzania. And I can go in there and I can see all of my files that I recorded during that trip. Some of these I've already identified. And then I do two things. I create an additional folder that is a backup folder. And that is because as I'm editing it, I'm potentially changing these folders, and I like to have a backup of the original. This is something that is optional depending on if it makes sense to you. But for me, I like to have a backup of the original so that when I'm editing on these sound files, I always know I can go back and find that original file. The other thing that I'll mention is that as I'm going through and processing these sound files, I have a done folder. And what this done folder has is these are all the files that I've gone through and I've extracted and I've uploaded. And what this does is it creates a workflow where I can see where I am with any of these files, what I've uploaded, what I haven't. And so, for example, these are files that have the names attached to them but I haven't uploaded them. And so the this is not, you don't necessarily need to follow this, but I think that I strongly encourage you to have a more systematic way of saving your files so that you can always get back to them and know kind of where they were, where you were when you were recording, and if you ever need to find them. And so. Some people will have a folder for each day of recording. I have a folder for each more or less each month. But um, all right. Now, what I want to do is what I usually do is I go through a day of recordings, but what I've done is I pulled out a few recordings just as examples. And I'm going to go through kind of looking at those sound recordings and doing some basic editing. Um, And to do that, I'm going to use a platform called Ocean Audio. This is Ocean Audio. This is a free platform that you can download. And this is kind of a nice basic platform for looking at sounds, understanding what's in them, and doing some basic editing. To add files to Ocean Audio, here I have some sound recordings that I've downloaded from Kenya. And what I'm going to do is just drag and drop them in. Now, what you're looking at here is that when you first open Ocean Audio, the first thing that you're going to see is what's called the waveform. The waveform is basically a graph of the intensity of sound. And so what I'm seeing here is that here we have a recording where there's something loud here, and then it goes to like more quiet, and then there's this peak of sound here, and then it's kind of quiet, right? This is really helpful in knowing which parts of the recording there's a lot of sound, or where the sound is louder and where it's not. When I look at this looks like something that's like, oh, this is making a sound and then it's quiet, and then the bird is making another sound, right? What this doesn't do is allow me to see the pattern. And so when I look at Ocean Audio, I want to see this waveform. It's very helpful, but I also want to see what's called a spectrogram that allows you to see that what frequencies that sound is. And so to do that, you want to go to view, and then you want to look at the waveform and the spectral view. And so that's going to be under view. You want to select waveform and spectral view. Now, what I'm doing is I can see where it's loud and where it's more quiet, and I can also see what frequencies the bird is. And so this spectrogram is you have time on the x-axis, and then you can also see where it's brighter, that's where it's louder, and what frequencies that is. And so oftentimes you can just zoom in and actually look, and you can actually identify a bird just based on that spectrogram. Is this like is it a high pitch sound? Is it a low pitch sound? Is it this kind of warbly thing, or is it like a thin, sound? Doves are going to be lower pitch and down here. Things that a lot of songbirds are going to oftentimes have higher frequencies. Anybody want to guess what this bird is just looking at the spectrogram? Nobody? I would expect you, at least David Moyer would know what it is just looking at this spectrogram. He's never seen this. I didn't tee him up. David, do you know what this is?
Well, I'm looking at a couple of different options. The way the sonogram looks an awful lot like a square-tailed or fork-tailed drongo, but I don't think that's what this one is. And so no, I can't tell you exactly what it is, but I have a feeling that I know what it sounds like. So I need to hear it.
So one of the nice things about this is that when you look at this, you can also see this section down here that looks quite a bit different. And what this section is you see has some lower frequencies. It doesn't look like a bird. This is kind of looks like a voice note. And so oftentimes when I go to the recording, what I do is I want to go to that voice note and just hear what I said about it at the end of the recording. And now it's always a little embarrassing when I'm sharing my own voice note because I probably didn't include as much information I'd like. You know what? I need to probably reshare and make sure that I am sharing with sound. Okay, let's see. All right, so let's listen to what I said. So, 59 calling from the tip top of the tree. And David, we might want to put a link to Ocean Audio in the chat. So what did I say there? I was a somber green bull calling from the top of a tree, and I gave the time and some pretty basic information. I probably could have added more information, but here we'll listen. Does that sound like a somber green bull to people?
I'm not hearing it, Cullen.
Hmm, you're not hearing it. Let me try one more time. I'm sharing sound. Do you hear it? Hmm.
Um,
That's
you need to go into Ocean Audio under preferences and change the output to something possibly. That's usually where I find the problem with Ocean Audio.
If you select the Teams audio there on that option, Cullen, on that system, when you on that drop down, go down to Microsoft Teams Audio One channel.
no, that didn't work.
There we go.
All right.
Yeah,
There
great.
we go. Thanks, David.
No worries.
All right. Now, does that sound like a somber green bull? All right. And so just this is my voice note right here. Somber green bull. 7:59 calling from the tip top of the tree. All right, so that confirms it, and you can kind of see is in this recording, when the bird is singing, you have this big spike, and there's so looking at this is kind of nice. I can almost identify it just by looking at the pattern. I can see just looking at the spectrogram, I can see I have a voice note, and I can go straight to that voice note and listen to it. And I can kind of see looking at the beginning that I probably was calling when I was started to record. And so this is a pretty straightforward recording. All I'm going to do is basically trim the parts that I don't want, and I'm going to change the level of it. I'm going to normalize it, right? And so in terms of editing, that's basically all I do for a scientific archive is I cut the parts that I don't want, and I change the level, intensity level, so that it's consistent with other sound recordings. And to do that, I'm going to do a couple of things. I want to be able to select things at the end and cut them. And one of the things that's really going to help is to set up shortcuts. And so before I do this, I'm going to show you a couple of shortcuts. One is I want to select until end, and I do that with one key that allows me to kind of select to the end. I have another one where I can select to the beginning, and then that way I can kind of delete that if I want to. And then another key for normalizing it, which is pulls up this normalization box, and I will normalize to -3 decibels. When I normalize, basically what we want to do is we want to take the loudest sound in the recording and make that we don't want to make it the max possible sound. We want to make that a little bit below. And so when you're setting it, if you were to say 0 decibels, that would be the max sound possible when you play it. And so I want to do -3, which is a little bit below max, right? And I'll hit apply. And so what you saw is that I increased the intensity of the sound, and now you can, now it's a little bit louder. It's probably a little bit easier to hear my voice note. Summer rainbow, 7:59, calling for the tip top of the tree. And you can see this recording, this song, this phrase right here is the loudest sound on the recording. And so really what it's doing is this is the loudest sound. We're going to increase the intensity of the sound. And so that's at -3. If you didn't normalize, and if we didn't normalize before putting in the archive, you would have some sound recordings that are really faint, and you'd have to turn up the volume to hear them. And then you go to the next recording, and it would blow your hearing out, and it would be like up and down. That's why, like, when you listen to music on an album, they're all roughly the loudest sounds are about as loud. And so that's why we normalize it. But it's really when you normalize, it's not changing the pattern of the recording. All it's doing is basically turning up the intensity of the sound, but the relative sounds, unfortunately, you're increasing the intensity of the sound of the bird and the background sound, when you do that. Now it's I said I was going to talk about shortcuts. That makes it really, really easy to do this, right? And so basically, I started with this. What I want to do is I want to give some buffer, basically, give about 3 or 4 seconds afterwards. And I want to select till end. I'm not going to keep that voice note because it's not particularly informative, but you can. In this case, I'm just going to make sure I add those notes. All I said is that it's a somber green ball and it was at the top of a tree in the time. And so in this case, I'm probably not going to keep these voice notes, but I make sure that I add that to the notes. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go to the beginning, which I have another kind of key for, and I'm going to listen. And it's one faint call. So I'm going to zoom in and look at that, right? And so this is a call that's like half cut off. And to me, maybe I just don't want to keep that one because it's like half a call. I wasn't on the bird. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go about 3 seconds beforehand, and I'm going to select to the beginning and cut that off and start. So I have 3 seconds of silence. and then that recording. Now, if I only had a couple of phrases and this was a really rare bird, then I might actually keep that half a phrase in some cases. But in this case, I'm not going to keep that. And so I'm going to delete that. And then now I just normalize, and that is editing for this. This recording is now ready to upload. I cut the part at the end. I cut the part at the beginning I didn't want. I normalized, and then it's ready to go. Now you can go through and do all of that by going through this menu, but I want to show you um, here in preferences, they have an option to set up key bindings. And those key bindings make things really efficient. These are keyboard shortcuts. And so these keyboard shortcuts, the ones that I like, now everybody can be a little bit different. I'm sure that David Moyer and John and Judith and others, they have this set up a little bit differently. But the ones that I like are basically, I like to be able to, I'm going to just go over. Um, I like to go to the very beginning very quickly. And so I have a shortcut that if I hit B, I go straight to the beginning. Right. And that's a really nice one. And so to do that, I go move cursor. Uh, um, and this pulls this up, and there's move cursor to the beginning and move cursor to the end. And so B and E. So if I'm somewhere and I want to go to the very end, I'll hit E and it takes me straight to the very end. If I'm somewhere in the middle of the recording and I want to go to the very beginning and listen to what the beginning of the recording sounds like, let's say I'm zoomed in here to this and I'm like, oh, I want to go to the beginning. I just hit B and it takes me to the very beginning of the recording and allows me to evaluate the beginning of the recording. So move cursor, and what I'm going to do actually right here is I'm going to put in the chat some of my favorite keyboard shortcuts. These are ones that I feel like that I use that make things really efficient, right? So there's beginning and the end, and then also select till the end, which basically allows me to just like select things really quickly to the beginning and then delete them if I want, and then select to the end. And then of course the other one is normalize, and I just have in. Now, I want to point out that there's different normalize options in Ocean Audio. What you're looking for is the normalize dot dot dot. And that dot 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 means that when you go to normalize, it gives you the options. And this allows you to set it. Once you set it at -3 decibels, you want to select decibels and -3. Once you do that, the next time you open this window, it's going to be the exact same thing. All right. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right. So now I have edited the sound, and now I want to save it. Now, but I'm not going to save that same file because I deleted my voice notes, and I might want to go back to my voice notes. And so instead, I'm going to do save as, or in my keyboard, I do Shift Command S. Uh, um, and when I do that, it gives me the option, and I save it in the same folder. And what I do is I keep the original file name, and then I add an underscore, and I usually just type the name. Uh, um, you could write somber green bowl. I do SOGR for somber green bowl, the first two letters of each name. But really what it is it allows me to know which file is the somber green bowl when I'm doing the upload process. And when it's in the Macaulay library, let's say a year from now, I have a question about that recording. I also have the original file name and I know what it's associated with. And so this file is saved and now it's ready to upload. So I'm going to go through a couple of other ones real quick. Here I can see that there's something faint. What I'm going to do is maybe even before listening to it, because it seems faint, I'm going to just start by normalizing. That's going to allow me to hear the voice note. One of the things that you'll notice is that it didn't increase the intensity very much. And that's because there's this loud sound at the end, which is probably handling noise that it was normalized on, right? And so I'm just going to listen to that. Um, February 3rd. So it's just me saying the date. It sounded like there was like something that may have hit the parabola, and that's what created that little spike. And so that's what that was. What I believe to be multiple Zanzibar boo-boo. I didn't see any. So there I'm giving a voice note of what I was recording and also my uncertainty, just letting me know, that this is a bird that identified by sound. I think it's something that's pretty obvious. And so we'll listen to the loudest part here. I can go straight to that. One of the things that you'll notice is that the frequency goes up to 48 kilohertz, but most of the sounds are between 1,000 and 10,000 hertz. And so if you go to this side, you can actually zoom in to that frequency band, and that can be kind of nice. And then you can also zoom in and look at this pattern by putting your cursor over and zooming in or out, right? So in this case, I might start by actually just renaming the file because I don't want to lose my file or lose anything from the original file. And then what I can do is I'll probably go to the beginning and listen. That's good. So I'm not going to delete anything from that. What you have is one individual that's singing and then another one that's nearer kind of responding. And so then I'll listen to my voice note. What I believe to be multiple Zanzibar boo-boo. I didn't see any. I was recording one and then another one started calling much closer. We're here in Sokoke Forest with Cullen and just Dave. Beautiful morning. It is February 3rd. All right, so this note might have a little bit more interesting information. So in this case, I might decide to keep it. But you know what? I have the date. I don't really need that last part. So I'm going to select till the end and then delete that. That also had that loud spike in it. And that was kind of what everything was normalizing on it. And so this is where we have this issue, right? Is that if I normalize this, again, it's going to normalize on the loudest sound in the recording, and that's me talking. What I believe to be. All right, so I want to normalize on the bird sound. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a second of silence in between the bird and me talking. And since I have that shortcut S for silence, which is under the generate menu, I'm going to add a second of silence. And now I can, now people know that I have two cuts that are being edited differently. And I can actually copy. Again, I use that select till beginning. I put the cursor in that that sound, and I'm going to normalize this. So since I'm just selecting from that second of silence back, when I normalize, it's going to normalize and make the loudest sound in the bird -3 decibels. So I hit in, it's -3 decibels. I hit apply, and now the bird is louder. You can also go back if you want and you can select the voice note. Let's say in this case, I decide to leave the voice note. There's a little bit more interesting information. I can normalize it, but maybe it doesn't need to be -3. Maybe I want my voice to be a little bit softer. You can do -10 or -8. I'll do -8 for this one. And so that means it's going to be a little bit softer than the sound of the bird. All right, so John asked, do you recommend that recordists upload the recordings with brief descriptions at the end? And so he's referring to that voice note at the end, this part right here. Do you recommend keeping it? Well, I would say that is what's important is that you retain information about that recording so that people know how to interpret it. Sometimes that voice note has a lot of useful information. What's really helpful is if you put that information into the details when you upload it. And it can be really helpful to leave that voice note. So you can leave that voice note, and a lot of people do, and that can be really helpful. However, you don't have to. It is optional. Some people do, some people don't. In my first recording, it didn't really have that much information, so I just went ahead and deleted it. In this case, I'm going to leave it. And really, my point is that it's a judgment call every time. What's important is that you retain useful information about how to interpret that recording. In this case, there was multiple individuals. There's one calling, and then another responded, helping people understand that there's two birds there. If there's any uncertainty about the sound, mentioning that you identified it, by voice or how you identified it can be helpful. There's other kinds of information. I know that Judith and Jonathan are on here. So is Sasha and Peter and I think Joseph. I think I saw Joseph on there. If anybody else wants to say anything about voice notes, please do. Do you upload your voice notes? Nobody? Jonathan? Uh, um, Joe says I don't. Jonathan, do you upload your voice notes? How about Davis Marunga does? Jonathan Onanga, no, I don't currently. David, do you upload your voice notes when you upload recordings?
Well, it depends. I mean, I started recording in the days of tape, and of course, all of those get uploaded. And when you hear one on Macaulay, you generally see those voice notes. And up until very recently, I've just uploaded all my voice notes with no thought to it whatsoever. But lately, I've been taking voice notes and then putting all of that data into the metadata or comments field. And if I feel like I've captured everything there, then I don't bother uploading my voice notes. That's only a very recent thing since February, and some days I upload voice and some days I don't. As long as the data is all there so people can get to it, that's what counts.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. Actually, I usually don't upload my voice notes, but sometimes I do. In this case, I'm gonna keep my voice notes as an example. And I saw Judith said, I don't. They are usually louder than the rest of the bird sound. That's an important point. And if you want to keep them, this is what I suggest you do: is you add a second of silence between, delete the part that you don't want. You can then normalize by selecting a section of the recording. And so in this case, I selected just the voice notes and I normalized to -8, right? And then I went back and I selected to the beginning, which was the entire bird sound. and I normalized to -3, and thus the bird sound is actually louder than the voice, and that allows you to adjust that. Um, Anytime you're editing two sections differently, let's say you normalize a section differently than the other, you really want to make sure you add that second of silence so that people understand the difference. Like what you would never want to do is say, this is one recording, this bird is softer, so I'm going to normalize that, uh, um, to -3 so that that part's louder. That becomes an unnatural recording, and you can see it in the background sound. And so you would never, I'm going to undo that. And I just did a Command Z and I undid that. You would never want to do that. If for some reason you want to normalize two sections differently, make sure you create that cut. That way, anybody who's listening to the recording knows that there's a break and something happened there and there's a different cut. All right. And so I have this, I've normalized it. I'm going to just save, and this recording is ready to go up. John, do you want to ask your question? I see you made a question.
Yeah, so less a question, just a comment. But I was just saying that on an extended trip, um, I try my best to obviously take as much detail as possible. And recently, I find, especially with the annotations that David's got us involved with, and I see there's a couple of annotators as well that are joining as well. But you'll notice that working through the annotations and actually looking at the context of some of these recordings, a lot of the stuff it helps. The more detail really, really, really helps. So where possible, whichever recording that I submit, I try and put as much detail as possible in the text. So where it asks for that additional information, and also where I can add in those background noises myself, I also try and do that to the best of my ability. But I was just thinking now, and my comment is that on a trip where I'm recording for an extended period, it might actually be worthwhile just to simply make the verbal note, and then just exclude it in processing it in Ocean Audio afterwards in the upload, and then just use it as a memory bank so that I can just upload it and type those notes. Otherwise, I'll just lose track of it. So it might still be worthwhile to make that note verbally and then just type it out.
For what it's worth, when I talk to people who use sound recordings, a lot of them are like, "Oh yes, it's good to leave the voice note because it's really helpful for understanding the context at the time." But it just depends on the voice note. What's really important is that when you're recording, you add that voice note, and it's super helpful when you're doing this step. Like when I come here and I look at this recording, when I'm going through recordings, I almost always just go straight first to the voice note and what I believe to be multiple Zanzibar boo boo. I listen to what I said was in the recording before I go and evaluate the recording. Because sometimes, you make a recording and the bird doesn't sing. It's like a bird singing. You're like, okay, I'm going to record that bird. You point the microphone at the bird, you hit record, and the bird just shuts up and looks at you, with a big smirk. And it's just like, huh, and you're like, and you record for like a minute thinking it's going to call. It's called, it never does. And so then you hit stop. Now you have a recording that may have some faint background sounds. If you don't do a voice note, you're going to listen to it and you're like, why was I trying to record this faint noise? It must be something really important. And so you spend a lot of time listening to that sound recording. At the end of the recording, what you should say is, I tried to record this bird, but it didn't call. And that'll save you a bunch of time because you listen to that voice note and you're like, oh, I was trying to record something, it never called. I don't have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what I was doing. I can just move on to the next sound recording. Anything you can add, you can almost never add too much information, and then you almost always add not enough, And so these voice notes are really important. And I'm guilty of that. I'm almost always guilty. I was like, oh, I wish I had added more information about it, right? So let's go to the next one. Here we have something, you can see there's something kind of calling here, just looking at the waveform. I can see a pattern down here. I'm just going to go straight to the voice note. Additional recording of Zanzibar Boo Boo. It was kind of soft. So I'm just going to start by normalizing. Now you'll notice that my voice note is the loudest thing. And so it's normalizing on that, but I can hear it a little bit better. Additional recording of um, Zanzibar Boo Boo, I believe, didn't see it. Don't have no idea how far away it is. Hearing this for 6:35 a.m. Same individual as one of the birds recording in the previous cut. So here I provided some context. I was recording one of the same birds that was in the previous recording. And I could not see them. I don't know how far they were, and they were identified by sound. That's basically what I knew about it. Uh, so what I can do here is, in this case, I'm just going to add this sound recording to the previous sound recording, right? And so I'm going to go in, and this is 2 seconds. I'm going to use the B key and listen to it. Okay, so the beginning sounds great, so I'm not going to adjust that at all. I'm going to look at the end of it, and I don't want all this dead space here. And so what I'm going to do is go here, and I'm going to go for in this case, I have the space. I'm going to see, what is this thing right here? All right, well, that's not the same bird. I'm going to go here. That's about 4.2. You can see the number up here. It's 4.2 seconds. That's a good amount of space. I'm going to add a second of silence here. All right, and now I can select to the beginning and normalize. And you see how I get louder because before I normalized the recording. But in this case, if I want to include this voice note, I'll just select here. I don't need this information. And now I can select till the end. I can normalize this. Maybe I'll make it -8 because I don't need it to be so loud. And there we go. So this provides context. Let's listen to this additional recording of Zanzibar Boo Boo. I believe, didn't see it. Don't have no idea how far away it is. Hearing this for 6:35 a.m. Same individual as one of the birds recording in the previous cut. So in this case, I'm going to keep this, but since this is the exact same bird I was recording before, I'm just going to add it to the previous recording, and I'm just going to select all. So this is already normalized. It's set up. If this was its own recording, I would upload it, but I'm just going to copy this, and then I'm going to go to this other recording, select anywhere. I'm going to go to the end, and I have that keystroke, that key shortcut. I'm just going to go to the end. I'm going to add a second of silence and go to the end again. And there we go. And I have this. Now, so I have these two recordings. Maybe what I'll do is just quickly upload this because I realize we're getting to the end of that hour already. I see some questions. Moyer, are there any questions in here that we should highlight?
I'm working through them one at a time. But yes, I think importantly, the question was asked about by Paul about how to increase the sound volume, or basically the signal to noise ratio on a recorder, because many of our recordings, mine included, are quite noisy. There's all kinds of background noise, and he was asking how you got such a good result. And so I suggested that getting closer is really the only way. Cullen would have been using a parabola at this point. Using a parabolic reflector can actually be quite good at reducing other background sounds that you don't want. So those are the basic thing. But getting closer is always the best solution you can have. The closer you get, half the distance is twice the sound volume.
I'll also say is that I cherry picked some recordings that had a high signal to noise ratio to demonstrate that with the waveform, but not all my recordings are have that high signal to noise ratio. I have a lot of recordings where there's a lot more background sound, and so yeah. So it's like a lot of times it's you can't control your environment, even if you have a parabola. Sometimes it's just background sound. There's that creek right there, or there's a traffic nearby, or David Moyer is talking in the background, and you just can't. Some things are uncontrollable, right? You know.
Yeah, it just comes out.
So the next step that I'll do is that let's just do this Zanzibar Boo Boo. This was I can look at the date. It was on February 3rd. I have
Cool.
time.
Zanzibar Boo Boo. I didn't see any. I was recording one, and then another one started calling much closer. We're here in Sokoke Forest with Colin and just Dave. Beautiful morning.
So one of the things that you'll look at, and I have the time in another part of it, is that in the metadata, and so here this is the original file. It said 6:30. Now you can't always trust the metadata, so it's really good to say what time it is in your voice note. But and then you can always line it up, and but this can be helpful. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to go to eBird, and one of the
Cullen,
things that
while you're going to eBird, let me make a couple comments on uploading. It's obviously not necessary to put all the background birds into your voice notes, but when you upload it to eBird, it's a really good practice to go back and listen to that recording within the media upload page and note down all the other species. And one of the frustrating things about that is because you were so focused while you were recording, you often didn't hear certain background species that you now will hear, and maybe you didn't get them on your eBird checklist, so you have to go add them to your eBird checklist before you can add them to other species. Probably many of you have run into that already if you try to do that, but those soft annotations are really helpful for annotators because it pre-populates a list of species that the recordist could hear in their recording, and it really helps you. So if you hear an unknown starling, you look over and you see, oh, that was a Hildebrandt starling, and suddenly you have the information you need, and you can get on with the annotation.
So the first thing I want to say is that like you can go to my eBird and then go to your checklists. And in this case, what I can see is that I had a couple of checklists early, and then I had a checklist on February 3rd. You can focus on that day by going to change time period. And I selected 2026, February 3rd, and I can see all of my checklists on February 3rd. And so since this was at 6:30, I can see that I have a list that started at 6:22. And so I'm going to look at that list. And this is the list. And you can already see that Just Dave, who is there with me, has already uploaded his sound recordings. And I can go down and this was a list that was 2 hours and a half, started at 6:30. This is definitely the list that I want to add this to. And so to add it, what I can do is I'm going to say click add media. All right. And then here I'm looking at the list. And what I can do is just grab the file that I just edited, and then I can just drag and drop it onto the right species. And then there it's uploading, and now it's saved. Once it says saved, you can actually leave the page once it's saved, right? And you can kind of look at it. And so now it's processing. But I still have one step left, which is I need to add information. And this information is really helpful, both in terms of helping people find this recording, and also interpreting what's in it, right? And so after, oftentimes for a checklist, I'll add all the sounds and then I'll edit it at once. And one of the things that you can do is select this right here and just see the species that have audio. And then I'll usually go through all the audio at once. But for this case, I'm going to demonstrate it. So I can listen to it, and then you can kind of go to. I'm not going to. And then you can, you have the voice note, and then you can listen to it again. And so I have the voice notes, but I'm going to add in the media notes. I'm going to say, so 2 cuts. Is this singing or calling, David? Is this their song?
Yes. It's antiphonal singing in cases where you get two birds counter singing. So it's their song.
To singing. The birds were not seen. The second cut is of one of the first cut, and then I might add you might add information about the habitat or something else. If you have additional species in the background, you can add them here. And again, this is really helpful for people interpreting the sounds or kind of looking for recordings that may have these sounds in it. The other part, so I'm going to select song. If you have a question of whether something is a song or a call, one of the things you can do is right click on the name of the bird and open that link in a new tab. And then you can actually hear examples of the song. That's right. And then they'll also have examples of calls. And so the account agrees with David Moyer that this is a song. And so this is something I would just tag that as a song. If you don't know, you don't have to tag that. You also want to select playback, whether it was used or not. It was not used in this case. And then something else that's really helpful is to add what recorder you're using. And in this case, I was using a Zoom F3. My microphone was a Wildtronics Pro Mono parabolic microphone, and I had a 22-inch parabola. All right, and then the last thing is I might add a rating. In this case, if you don't know how to rate it, you can always go and click this information and learn more. And in this case, what it'll do is provide some examples of a 5-star rating for 3, 2, and 1. Now, 5-star is basically like there's almost no background sound. It's a very strong signal. There's nothing interfering with it versus a 1, which is the sound of the bird is almost indistinguishable from the background sound. In this case, Moyer, what do you think about this one? Let's go to the
I have an uneasy relationship with putting 4 and 5 stars, but it's not that busy a recording. There's stuff in the background, and then there's this boo-boo in the foreground. I would probably put that as a 4.
Yeah, I would say that when I look at this, I think it's between a 3 and a 4, right?
Mhm.
And so I might do it. There's not a lot of stuff competing with it. It's pretty solid, and so I'll put that
Yep.
in. Done. Um, so that is that is basically demonstrating the upload process. Does anybody have any questions or anything that they want to share about that? Uh, uh, um, are there things that you would have done differently or think I should have done differently?
I would just say that a lot of times there's more than one way to get at the same result, and sometimes it can be quick. Um, so the key bindings are helpful. Sometimes if you have an extended keyboard, you can also use your home and your end keys to get you in a place. What Cullen demonstrated there was really useful in terms of separating out the voice notes very quickly and then normalizing the rest of the recording up to -3 so you can actually hear it and hear stuff in the background. Oftentimes, if you're using a 32-bit recorder, um, you may get a very, very quiet recording and you can't really hear it until you normalize it and have a good listen. So those are just a few quick comments I would make.
Anybody else have anything that they would like to share on how they do things differently? I know that I see some people from the Planet Birdsong crew. Peter's here, and I think Joseph was on here somewhere. Do you have any comments that you want to share? John, has your hand up? Go for it.
I've just given John Muturi, I've just given you the ability to unmute yourself. So go for it.
John, can you? it- we're not hearing you if you're talking. All right. Anybody? Well, I guess.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we hear you now.
All right. I just wanted to know the best way to get rid of ambient noise, like the wind, a lot of wind sometimes when recording outdoors, um, even with a microphone, but uh, it's got a lot of the cut uh, thing uh, that is protected, but I tend to get a lot of noises that interfere with some of the recordings that I take. And the second question is, you said that ocean audio is free.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the help I need with the best way to have recordings without a lot of noise.
Ocean Audio is free. Here it is. Yeah, let me see. So, um, you asked the question. It's like sometimes it's unavoidable to have background sound. And I think that Mariano, let's follow up about that. Great question. If we could do this in French. I can't do this in French, but we do have some things that are translated into French, and we can discuss that. So I guess your question about what to do when you have a lot of background sounds, and I think that the short answer is the best way to deal with that is in the field. By getting close to the bird and avoiding sources of noise, asking your friends politely to be quiet for a minute so you can record. Go to places that don't have a lot of sounds. But as we all know, a lot of times, a lot of these things aren't really possible. And But the thing is, as a scientific archive, you can always do more to like filter and edit a sound, but you can't put that information back in. And I encourage everybody to be very careful about trying to filter because we never have a problem with people not filtering. And we have a lot of trouble with people trying to filter the recordings. And it reduces the value of the recording. It reduces the things that you can do with the recording when you add some of these filtering techniques because it actually affects the recording itself. And that's why especially when you're starting out, it's really better to not try and alter the sound recording and provide that raw recording, which is what is going to provide the greatest value for researchers and those that want to use that recording. Peter, I see your hand up. Do you want to make a comment?
Hello. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Yeah. I just wanted to talk briefly about parabolas and some discussion we've been having on the WhatsApp group that we've been trying to develop these kind of low cost parabolas that work very well with most sounds, but don't work very well with the very lowest sounds. I mean, and there was a bit of discussion with David about, the parabolas we use yeah, for most songbirds, they really enhance recording with just an iPhone and make them very much better. Whereas with something like a ground hornbill or something, a very low sound, it comes out rather distorted. But I mean, we feel, I think John Kinghorn has been trialing some of our parabolas. I think we feel that they do work very well and that they can be a very useful tool to people who don't have enough resources to buy a kind of an expensive parabola. I just wonder if you got any advice about what we should do about those very low sounds. I mean, I'm mostly recording in the UK. We got species like bittern for which I don't use it. But most species, even kind of doves and things, work fine. I wonder if you have any any advice to people of how to get around that problem.
Yeah, and I think that for people that are actually I have a picture right here of one of them. I'll just go ahead and share of the parabolas that you're talking about. This
Yeah.
you can kind of see it's this cool thing and another this is another example of a parabola that we use. This is the recording that I showed earlier. I was using this Wildtronics parabola. The way they work is that sounds entering the parabola. I think that I have sounds entering the parabola are kind of redirected towards a directional or a omnidirectional microphone in the middle. And so it's really kind of focusing on one direction, whereas sounds from different angles or from behind you are more blocked or redirected in other directions. The problem with this is that low frequency sounds actually have a sound wave that is bigger than the parabola. And so they actually go around the parabola and they're not being redirected. And the larger the larger the parabola, the more frequencies it can kind of redirect and reflect. And so, for example, this parabola, it's and I forget the frequency, but even with this parabola, owls and some doves, you're not getting the benefit of it, and it's basically, depending on the microphone, similar to using your cell phone to record those low frequency sounds. I don't know why you'd get it distorted, because I think it'd be similar just to using your cell phone. You would actually
You
better
get distorted because it's only picking up the harmonics, and so the sound sounds really funny.
You certainly do. If I record a bit, I've actually got a big Talinga parabola that I have tried using for low species like bittern, but even that, as David says, it comes out very tinny, and you're just hearing the higher harmonics, and that it gives quite a distorted sound. I mean, it wouldn't matter if it was just sounded like your cell phone, but it actually does sound quite
Yeah.
odd and rather unlike the species. I mean, it's only a few species, I would say, certainly in this country. I haven't used a I have, but someone like Joseph, if he's there, has used our parabolas in Rwanda, and he could probably say which species, if there are any particular species there that don't come out very well.
Yeah, and so this is a case where actually a shotgun microphone is more advantageous. And of course, we're not talking about field techniques and equipment today, but usually when we go into that, this is one of the reasons there's an advantage to a shotgun microphone, is it still deflects some of that sound, but it works with the whole range of frequencies, low frequencies and high frequencies. And so that's something to keep in mind, is that if your goal is to record bitterns, then you have the choice of getting a shotgun microphone or a parabola. Then I would use the shotgun microphone.
I suppose what more the question I was asking is if you've done a series of recordings and most of them work very well, but you've got a few that don't come out too well. First of all, are there any tricks that can make them better in the editing process that you know of? And secondly, what would you advise people to do? Just discard them, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it depends on how good or bad that they are. But again, this is why it's really helpful to document what gear you're using,
Absolutely.
because it'll help people interpret that sound recording. And that's one of the reasons that we really encourage people to document what sound recording equipment they were using to make that sound recording. And that's why adding what kind of parabola, things like that. Um, but again, I would not recommend filtering or trying to manipulate the sound, because I would recommend uploading the raw sound, because you don't really want to alter the sound of the bird. You want to give people the raw sound recording and let them know how it was recorded, and they can interpret it, because you can always modify a sound, but you can't unmodify it. Once you start manipulating a sound, people can't get back to the original. Information is lost, and people are less likely to use it. Um, we are over. I realize that we're over time. I want to take a time to thank John for hosting us, and BirdLife South Africa for hosting us for this. And I want to thank everybody for joining us. If this is helpful, we would love to hear from you. We can do this again. In fact, if anybody is interested in participating in editing a sound and demonstrating how you edit a sound, we'd love to have others demonstrate that. I see, there's some people from Planet Birdsong. We have some people from Uganda, others from South Africa, Zambia. We would love to have one of you lead a sound editing forum and discussion. John, do you have any comments or?
No, just a massive thank you very much to you, Cullen and David as well, who's been furiously typing away, and his keyboard is probably alight with answering everybody's questions behind the scenes. But yeah, to everybody for joining, really appreciate it, and yeah, hopefully everybody's derived some kind of a benefit from this. We have recorded this. It will be uploaded to the BirdLife South Africa YouTube channel as well, under the we'll create a separate Big Year of African Sounds playlist. And what we'll do is we'll make it available to everybody who wasn't able to attend, but also for those of you who were able to attend and you perhaps just wanted to refresh on a couple of ideas. And then we'll obviously keep you updated on any of the future installments as well. But yeah, please let us know if there's any specific topics you had in mind relative to sound recording, the Big Year of African Sounds, birdsong. Please just reach out to Cullen, David, myself, and let's keep the conversation going.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks,
Great.
everybody. Yeah. David, Cullen, any more final words before I bid everybody farewell and close uh, the uh, the webinar?
I think
No,
just the
it's
last
really,
thing.
really
Go
good to
ahead,
meet
Moyer.
with you guys all today and to see the enthusiasm behind all of this. Thank you so much, Cullen, for running through some of those recordings and putting me on the spot multiple times. Much appreciated. Over to you.
Um, no, Judith, did you have a comment you want to share? I see Judith's hand up. I don't know if you wanted to share something. Well, I don't hear you if you do.
She just had a message in chat.
Oh,
Just
I see.
saying thank you, John, for everything.
I guess the last thing is that if y'all have any ideas for specific topics around sound recording within the big year of African sound, or ideas or talks that you'd like to hear, we'd love to hear it. We very much welcome your feedback. Yeah.
Thanks.
Perfect.
Great. Well, I hope everybody has a great evening and good luck sound recording.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. And yeah, stay tuned for the next installment.
Can I speak something?